Okay, so earlier we were speaking about motivation, and when you go into your classroom, is that like the first thing that you think about when you like enter? Like, how do you go in each time? How do you go in each time with your students and thinking about how you're gonna keep them engaged in your class?
Well, I try to show up about an hour early. So I'll set up the AV equipment, but mostly so that I can set an intention. So last night, I specifically set the intention, please let me be effective. Let me give my students something they need, something they can use for life. Let me be a positive influence.
Mm.
And if that's the intention, then there's two ways to look at it. Either your brain is going to show up and make it happen, or spiritually it's going to happen, depending on how you want to interpret it. So I go in with the intention and I'm very motivated just by being in front of the class. I have 100 people who are there to be quiet and listen, so I want to give them something of quality. And I find the delivery of quality teaching is what motivates me.
What about your students? I remember when I was in the class personally, I enjoyed the class. It was my favorite class. And even my peers, they said that they got something from the class. And one of the things that really came up was faith. And sorry. So one of the things that came up was faith. And what does that mean for you when that comes in and you have to teach a class?
Well, when I'm walking into the classroom, I'm not neutral. I have an agenda. I want people to be successful, happy, and to feel that they are worthy, lovable, and loved. So that's my agenda right away. I'm not there neutral. I am not objective. But I also understand that there's people on different faith paths. Not everybody's at the same place in their faith walk. I have atheists, agnostics, I have Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Sikhs. I have a room full of different types of believers, and the spiritual types too. So now what do? I have to convey a message that's suitable to all of them. So I'll talk about faith within the different world religions, but also I'll talk about faith in, and then kind of like fill in the blank. So faith in yourself, faith in mind over matter is something I talked about last night. Faith in compassion and the best of the human spirit. So faith comes into it academically, but also in a humanitarian way. I want people to be able to have faith in something, someone, but especially their own abilities.
Can you tell me about a time where you feel that you really needed faith in your life?
Wow. Yes. I've had a lot of health problems over the years, and a lot of times I should have died and didn't. So over this past summer, I had one of those episodes. I was severely anemic, like severely, like they had to give me blood transfusions, kind of anemic. And so the doctors were like, we have to find the source of why you're so anemic. Are you bleeding internally? So thank God my parents helped me out with getting some health insurance. Went to get some tests, one of which was to see if I was bleeding internally, bleeding ulcer or something. Well, the doctor found a very large polyp. Not cancerous, just a big hunk of extra stuff, whatever it is that our bodies make when they make polyps. And he cut it out of me, and I wake up from the anesthesia, and he tells me about this, and he says, just watch out to see if there's any bleeding. I'm sending you home. Sent me home, and there was bleeding, but I didn't pay attention because I had a dinner plan that night, and I didn't want to miss my dinner plan. And I'm sitting at dinner, and it was someone I hadn't seen in a few months, and we're both talking, very excitedly. When it was time to leave, I stood up, and I saw stars. And I said, I think you better go get the car. I don't know if I can walk. And the next thing I remember, I'm on the floor of Zinberger. I had passed out. I was bleeding so heavy, like it was on the floor of the restaurant. Like bad. Ambulance came, and now I'm pretty much bleeding to death. And, they're trying to get me to the hospital as quickly as possible. It took them like forever to get the blood type me and hang the bag of blood to get it dripping into me. So I'm on death's door again. And I said, God, I know you're not done with me. You didn't bring me all this way to let me bleed out because I had a polyp removed. So whatever's happening right now, I believe this is happening for me rather than to me. There is something I'm going to learn about this. And I'm going to be able to share this story and give other people hope. So people say, well, were you afraid you were going to die? I'm like, it was a possibility that I could have died. I wasn't afraid. I just knew that I was going to fight, I was going to win, and then I would have a story to tell that would give other people hope and encouragement. And that's exactly what happened.
Where do you get that positivity from, that faith?
Faith is a choice. It's a way of knowing. I choose to believe that God is providing for me. I choose to believe in grace. There's no proof. Faith is believing without proof. Well, I'm still alive. That could count as proof. Certainly. I keep bouncing back from all these, these terrible illnesses with stories to tell that are helping other people. So I choose to interpret that as God is using me. Could I interpret it a different way? Sure. Could I say, oh, poor me, why do these things happen to me? I guess I'll just hang on and, do what I can. No, I choose to believe that these experiences are meant to be lessons. But like I said, faith is a choice. Where does it come from? Being raised as a faithful person, being surrounded by religious people, then being agnostic for so many years, then coming back to the faith, prayer, being in touch with the source of all, the creator of all. That's what gives me this feeling that makes me choose to be faithful.
What would you say to those whose faith is being challenged in any way, especially to your students?
When my students are going through any kind of challenge, especially a faith-based challenge, I'm going to say, be aware. Be aware what is coming to you. Be aware of what's going on in your life. And how are you going to interpret it so that it empowers you? Okay, if you're going to interpret things in a way that is disempowering, things aren't going well, God has abandoned me or something like that, I'm going to say, no, every scripture I've ever read says that God will never leave you or forsake you, ever. So if something's happening for you, to you, something's coming up in life, let's take a look at it. I can offer options for interpreting things. I can say, which part of your problem are you concentrating on? I might say something like, just forgive yourself for having negative feelings and understand that faith is just not something that's constant. Challenges to anything, whether it's your faith, your goals, your friendships, your relationships, are going to help you to become stronger. So look at this as an opportunity to be stronger. And when you have questions, go to someone like me or go to your pastor, your imam, whoever it is that is your religious leader, and ask for some input. Get some options.
What about those who don't have a religious leader?
Well, then you go to a good counselor or a good teacher, a good mentor, and get options from them. Again, faith, my students will be coming to me from different faith walks. And if they're not religious, I don't want them to feel abandoned by humanity or abandoned by hope. So I'm going to say you can have faith in, and then fill in the blank for whatever it is the student might believe in. The community, ability, hope, positivity, whatever is going to keep them trying, to keep them going.
Would you say that faith is hard to keep?
Faith is hard to keep. When we see negative things happening in the world, when we turn on the news, it's like, where is God in all this? Why is God letting this happen? So that sometimes presents challenges to people. So there's a few different ways to interpret that. I'll look at the news and say, all right, that's the bad news today. Where's the good news? Something else is happening today that they're not reporting because nobody tunes in to see good news. Or I'll say, okay, how did we as a society produce somebody who would do something evil? And how can we do a better job with creating, people? Challenges of faith. It depends what your ultimate goal is. If your ultimate goal is to stay in a love relationship with God or higher power or just compassion or love or humanity, that's your ultimate goal, you'll find a way.
What would... Can you actually pause that real quick? Have you ever had anyone in your class come up to you and thank you for the class? And if you've had, why have they thanked you for that class? And how did that make you feel?
I am so blessed that, yes, I have this happen to me multiple times during the semester, especially at the end of the semester. It's what I live for. I need that positive feedback, so I know that I should keep going. So that's an interesting aspect of faith is, I can keep the faith that I'm doing the right thing, but please give me positive feedback. So last night, for instance, I was reading the student essays, because I have them write a few sentences at the end of every class, and the theme was, people are trying to find themselves. My students were like, I don't know what my life purpose is. I'm like, whoa, okay, that's a call to action. I better give them some feedback, some guidance. So I listed a set of questions up on the board, up on the projector. I said, these are the things you should ask yourself so that you can find your life purpose. And it was things like, what do you like to read? What do you do when you have spare time? What do you do when you have extra money? And this was the one, when you say things like, oh, I want to feed the hungry and save the whales, do you really have a picture of what that's going to be like? Somebody who says, oh, I want to cure cancer. Great. Do you like being in a laboratory with no windows and gloves and doing experiments on mice? I mean, that kind of cure for cancer? What are they picturing? I want to cure cancer. Oh, well, do you want to be a fundraiser? Maybe you're a great salesperson. Are you an artist? Then you're going to design posters or something. So when people say, oh, save the whales, feed the children, what do you mean? Maybe what you're good at is something like music and creating music, being a musician. Maybe you're going to save the whales and feed the children by being the best musician, music therapist, composer, whatever, being the best that you can be. And then you'll have a ton of money doing what you love. And you'll donate to the whales and the children. So student, she comes up to me at the end of class. She said, oh, I just wanted to tell you it was so weird. And I get excited. When I hear weird, I'm like, oh, good, something spiritual's going on. She says, but that was me. That's exactly me. I'm always saying, I thought I wanted to be a marine biologist because I love, I love the idea of saving the whales and I loved Free Willy and all those movies. But really, I love music more than that, and I was kind of torn. But now that you said that, it's just like, wow, I can find a way to do both, to express my talents and what I'm really good at, and still, be active in the causes that I care about. And I felt like you taught that lesson just for me. And I said, well, you never know why I was led to teach that. Maybe it was just for you. So those moments, it makes my whole life, my whole career worthwhile.
Let's go back 20 years from now. What would you tell your then self now?
I would either just say something like Dory said to Nemo in the first movie, just keep swimming. Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming. What do? We swim, swim. Or I would say nothing. Because where I am now is real. And I wouldn't want to change that. The lessons I've had up to now are important. And they're things that should just be what they are. And the lessons I learned from the challenges I've had are exactly the lessons that I believe God wants me to have. So I would not go back and change a thing. But what I will do is I have young people, I have people of all ages, but mostly, mostly young people in my classes. I will tell them, just keep going, keep at it, keep looking, and be good.
And does your own teaching help you today?
Yes, because, and I am a compulsive blogger, vlogger. I'm on social media. I make motivational quotes. I just made 2 this morning. They're little memes. And I will go back and look at what I've written, and I will forget. And I'll be like, oh, and whatever came to me, because I mostly, sometimes it's from my own head, but I think, spirit speaks through me sometimes. And I need to see my own messages sometimes. So when I look back at my own writing, my own blogs, vlogs, Instagram tweets, Facebook statuses, wherever I'm putting my motivational stuff, and I reread it, especially these new features, the memories feature or time hop or any of those things, and I see what I've said that I've forgotten and I need to apply that to my life. Yeah, I've always said we teach best what we most need to learn. And so, yes, I can learn from myself. And I learn when my students hold me accountable. They're like, oh, professor, but didn't you just say, so if I'm down on myself or, I contradict myself or whatever, and they remind me, it's like, okay. So something I taught comes back to me from their mouths. So, oh, didn't you say, professor? Oh, you're worried about that one negative review. Don't you always say that, we shouldn't be worried about what other people have to say about us, or that other people's opinions of us are none of our business. You say that, right? I'm like, oh, yeah. I needed to hear that. Thank you.
So would you say that you learn from your students too?
Oh, absolutely. I read every review, every rate my professor, every eval, everything they write. I read it and I will change to adapt to what I think their learning needs are. Plus, I learn from their life lessons and how they're applying the things I teach. Because I don't have control over how they're going to receive what I teach. And when they come back to me with, oh, that lesson about there being always more than 2 options, it helped me to pick a major because I was stuck on these 2. And, when they give me feedback, then I say, oh, that's what they got out of what I said. Okay, so either I'll keep it the same and be like, yeah, good, or I'll tweak something a bit so that, I make sure that the point I was trying to get across gets across. So, plus, they make me question my own beliefs and my own teaching ideas. I've changed my attitude over the years to be a lot more tolerant, but a lot less pluralistic. So, tolerant, what does that mean? It means people who disagree with me. Yeah, sure, I'd like them to change their mind. But I also understand that they're coming from a point of view, I'm coming from a point of view, and in that we're the same. So rather than saying, well, all points of view are true, no, you have to believe in the one you believe in. You have to believe in the religion you believe in and do that with conviction, unless you're still seeking. But it's okay to think that your way of thinking is better or right, as long as how you feel about other people is still tolerant, compassionate, and you understand that they believe that they're right. So in that you have that believing that you're right in common.
And I never got to ask you, what made you get into teaching? Specifically,
not at all.
What made you get into teaching specifically as a religious teacher?
I wanted to be a philosopher since I was 17, and I started reading Eastern philosophy, even Western stuff. I was reading the Greek stuff too. And I wanted to be a philosophy. I didn't say professor. What I said was I want to be a philosopher. I wanted to read and write and teach. And then I didn't. Then I went into the corporate world instead. But after 12 years doing things you hate and dreading Monday and loving Friday, you realize that I'm wasting my life. What do I really want to be doing? And so I did the lottery scenario in my head. I pretended that, what if I hit the Powerball? What if I won $108 million? After all the shopping and the taking care of family and this and that, what would I do with my time? And I said, well, I still would want to read, write, and teach. So I thought I better go do that. So I begged them to fire me at my job. They did. They loved me so much that they fired me so I could collect. Because if I had quit, then you don't collect. So they let me do that. And that's when I started the ball rolling to get into... See, I was 30 years old. I had no college education. I had to start at 30, taking my SATs, sitting in a room of 17-year-olds. But I did. And as I developed this admiration for my professors. I'm like, oh, wow, they're changing my life so much. I want to change people's lives too. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to get my higher degrees, and then I'm going to be in front of the room so that I can give back what gave me so much hope and validation. And that's why I did it, because of my professors.
And would you say that's one of the best decisions that you've made in your life?
Yes. To do what you're good at and what you love, and to make that decision and to get everything else out of the way. I had to give up a 7-room, gorgeous apartment on Boulevard East in Weehawken, overlooking the Manhattan skyline. Yeah, I had to give that up to come back to Little Clifton, to a little, garden apartment down the street from my parents. I had to give up material comfort and prestige to come and be humbled and to do what I love. And I have zero regrets. I am very glad I took this path. I'm very happy. I'm very fulfilled.
Is there anything else that you would like to say towards the... I'm sorry, I'm going to do that again because I realized I did that. Is there anything that you would like to say to anyone?
Yes. Students are probably going to be listening to this, so I'm going to tell you now. You pursue what lights you up. Pursue what you love and do what you're good at, and you will be happy. We've all been given talents. Explore yours, find yours, and then do that.